Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into the staff engineer role,
Yeah.
a topic I know a lot of you have been really curious about.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a pretty good stack of material here for you guys today.
Yeah, we do.
The staff engineer's path is one of the big sources here, and we've also got some other interesting articles and things like that.
Lots of good insights.
Yeah, um, so the staff engineer role, it seems like it's really becoming more and more prominent in the industry.
Absolutely. It's a critical role.
So, I guess to kick things off here, what's the big takeaway from the staff engineer's path? You know, if someone wants to understand this role, what's the big thing they should take away?
Well, I think the key takeaway is that this book really positions the staff engineer as a leadership position,
Okay.
but not leadership in like the traditional sense of, managing people.
Right.
It's really about leveraging deep technical expertise to guide teams and influence the technical direction.
So like their technical vision is their leadership.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's interesting. So it's not like the typical management track, but it's like a different path to grow as a senior engineer.
I think about it as a dual track career ladder.
Okay.
So you can go down the management path or you can go down the staff engineer path.
And both can go all the way to the top.
Exactly. They both can go to very high levels of seniority in a company.
Okay, so this isn't just like a, like a sideways move or something like that.
Right. It's a very legitimate
Yeah.
path.
For someone who loves to be hands-on with the technology but still wants to have a huge impact, it seems perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what else kind of stood out to you as we're kind of looking through this book?
Well, the book uses this interesting analogy of navigating a complex terrain
Okay.
to describe understanding your organization.
Okay, so like it's like having a map of the company, but it's more than just an org chart.
It's more than just an org chart, exactly.
Tell me more.
It's about uncovering the hidden aspects of your company, like the decision-making processes, the potential roadblocks, the relationships between different teams.
So it's like, think about your own company.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that exist between teams that are like the chasms that they talk about?
Yeah.
Or what about those fortresses? Have you ever encountered a fortress in your career where it's like, you know, these individuals or teams that really make it hard to get things done?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody's encountered those.
Yeah.
I think the key is understanding how to navigate those.
Yeah.
That's why staff engineers need to be able to see beyond their immediate task.
Okay.
They need to develop a strategic vision.
Okay, so how is that different than just having amazing technical expertise?
Well, a technical vision is the big picture, the ideal future state.
Yeah.
A technical strategy outlines the practical steps, the how to actually get there.
Okay, so you need to, as a future staff engineer, you need to be able to both create the vision and the strategy.
Yeah, you need to be able to do both.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It is. Okay. And the book also talks about this concept called nimawashi,
Yeah.
the Japanese word. And basically what that means is informally building consensus before you formally propose something big.
Yeah. Get all your ducks in a row before
Yeah, get your ninjas in a row or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. Does the book have any like real world examples of this in action?
It does. It uses a case study called Sockmatcher.
Okay.
And it's about a company that is struggling with this big monolithic code base,
Uh-huh.
and they really need a strategic plan to move forward.
Yeah.
It's a great example of the kind of challenge and opportunity that a staff engineer might face in a large company.
Yeah, it sounds like all of this, this big picture thinking, this navigating organizational terrain, all this stuff has got to be super time consuming.
Absolutely. Time management is essential.
Yeah.
Because you're pulled in so many directions.
Yeah.
One of the suggestions they have is to actually visualize your time by blocking off
Okay.
non-meeting time on your calendar.
So just like you would schedule a meeting, you actually block off time to do your deep work.
Exactly. Treat it with the same importance as you would a meeting.
I love that.
They even quote an executive coach who's a big fan of this approach,
Oh, cool.
Fabiana Tassini, and she says it's a game changer for her clients.
Yeah.
A lot of
It
people
is.
struggle with this.
Okay, so we've theoretically got our time under control.
Right.
Now let's talk about actually leading these big projects.
Okay.
What kind of insights does the book offer on that?
Well, leading big projects requires the ability to handle ambiguity.
Okay.
Complex projects. It's not just individual coding skills.
Right.
You really need to be able to manage these big, complex projects.
So what separates a great project lead from a great engineer?
It's the ability to handle the unexpected, to communicate clearly, even in difficult situations, and keep everybody moving forward.
Okay.
The book also talks about using frameworks like RESCI to
Brilliant.
define roles and responsibilities.
Can you remind us what RESCI is again?
Oh, yeah. So RESCI stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, Informed.
Okay.
It's a way to clearly outline who is doing what on the project to avoid confusion
Yeah, that makes sense.
and wasted effort.
Yeah. Clear responsibilities make for smoother projects for sure.
Absolutely.
I remember they also highlight this guy, Mohit Chapadira's perspective.
Oh, yeah. Mohit,
Yeah, on leadership qualities.
he really emphasizes optimism, conflict resolution, and strong communication
Oh,
as essential traits for an effective project lead.
again, it goes beyond just the pure technical skills.
Yeah, it's about creating that positive team environment.
Yeah. Okay. And that leads us, I guess, to the topic of identifying those inevitable project stalls.
Yeah.
You know, those moments where things just grind to a halt.
Every project has them.
What are some of the tips that they have in here about recognizing when a project's veering off course?
They make this really useful distinction between being blocked
Okay.
and being lost.
Okay. I'm curious, what's the difference?
Being blocked means you've hit an external obstacle, like maybe you're waiting on another team or you need approval.
Right.
Being lost means that the project is lacking direction or clarity on what to do next.
So two very different beasts
They are.
requiring two different approaches.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about when you're blocked? What do they say about that?
When you're blocked, one of the things they suggest is understanding the other team's priorities.
Okay.
See if there's a way you can make their work easier or even escalating if necessary.
And I imagine communication is really key here as well.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, making it clear what your needs are, how this is impacting the project.
Right, make sure that they understand the impact of the blockage.
Okay, so what about when you're lost?
Being lost often involves revisiting the goals of the project,
Okay.
clarifying the requirements, or even exploring completely different approaches.
Okay.
It might even involve going back to the drawing board.
It's better than going down the wrong path, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about those times when a project just isn't moving and maybe it shouldn't, you know?
Yeah, they acknowledge that sometimes it's necessary to abandon ship.
Okay.
Maybe the goal has been achieved,
Right.
or the project just isn't viable anymore.
Yeah. And that takes courage, but that's a valuable lesson for sure.
You got to know when to fold them.
Yeah. And what about the danger of declaring victory too soon?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Just because the code is done doesn't mean the project is finished.
Right.
There might still be testing, documentation, deployment,
All those things.
all sorts of things.
Right.
So they give some good examples of how to define done clearly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you avoid any confusion?
Yeah. It's essential for managing expectations, making sure everyone's on the same page.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've talked about, defining done and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What about, they also talk about making your work discoverable.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just build something amazing. You actually need to be able to have people be able to find it and use it. So what are some of the strategies they talk about?
Documenting your work properly, making it easy to access.
Okay.
They also caution against shipping solutions that are built on a shaky foundation.
Oh, so it's about building for the long term, not just trying to get something out the door quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Address that technical debt early
Yeah. Technical debt,
before it becomes a bigger problem.
the bane of every engineer's existence.
It is.
So true. Okay, so that brings us to a topic that I think resonates with a lot of people, which is being a role model engineer.
Absolutely.
So that's such a key part of being a staff engineer.
Yeah. You really need to set a positive example.
So what does that look like in practice?
Demonstrating your competence, your willingness to learn continuously, and your ability to admit when you've made a mistake.
Okay, so those are qualities that I think any engineer should strive for,
Right.
but they become even more critical when you're in a leadership position.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the concrete examples that they give about embodying those qualities?
Being thorough in your work, seeking out new knowledge, and being transparent about your failures.
So it's not just about your technical skills, it's about your attitude
Yeah.
and your approach to work.
Yeah, your mindset.
Okay.
The book really digs into self-awareness here.
Knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and being honest with yourself about what you can and can't do.
Exactly. That's crucial for making smart decisions and not overcommitting yourself.
Which, let's be honest, is a struggle for many of us.
It is a constant struggle.
So true. And they also talk about, admitting when you make a mistake,
Right? Own up to your mistakes.
which I know can be hard for some people.
It can be.
but it's so important for building trust and ultimately, learning from your experiences.
It is.
One thing they suggest that I really liked is they said, try to reframe those mistakes
Oh, yeah.
as learning opportunities rather than failures.
Yeah, it's a good mindset shift.
Yeah. And that helps you stay positive, even when things don't go perfectly,
Absolutely.
which they never do.
They never did.
And along those lines, they also talk about this idea of embracing glue work.
Oh,
You remember what glue work is?
yeah, the tasks that nobody really wants to do, but that keep everything running smoothly.
Yeah, like writing documentation or building internal tools that everybody needs.
Exactly, the stuff that's not glamorous but essential.
Right.
The book argues that staff engineers should be willing to take ownership of these tasks.
Oh,
Even if they're not, the most exciting or high profile.
it's leading by example.
It is.
Okay. What else? What else kind of stood out to you from this section?
Well, there's this emphasis on taking charge,
Okay.
not just doing your own work, but actually stepping up and taking ownership of situations that need attention.
So being proactive, taking initiative even when it's outside your defined role.
Exactly.
Okay. And do they give any specific examples of how to do that?
Yeah, things like coordinating during emergencies,
Okay.
clarifying ambiguous situations,
Mm-hmm.
addressing interpersonal conflicts that arise on projects.
So it's like part detective, part diplomat, part firefighter.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. So you really got to wear a lot of hats.
You do.
And then they also talk about being a good influence.
Yes.
And so I guess it's not just about setting a good example. It's about actually, helping others develop their skills and advance their careers.
Yeah, be a mentor, be a coach, be a champion for the people around you.
Okay. And they give some practical tips on how to do that, right?
They do. They talk about providing feedback, sharing your knowledge, creating opportunities for others to shine.
Okay. So it sounds like staff engineers can really have a huge impact, not just on projects, but on people's careers as well.
Absolutely.
And they even take it a step further and they talk about scaling your good influence.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that mean?
So it means going beyond impacting individuals
Okay.
and creating systems and structures that support positive change at a larger scale.
Got it.
They outline 3 levels of influence:
Okay.
individual, group, and catalyst.
Okay. Break that down for me.
Individual influence is what we've been talking about, impacting the people you work with directly.
Right.
Group influence extends that to your whole team or a specific community within your company.
Okay.
And then catalyst influence is about establishing things that have a lasting impact even after you're no longer directly involved.
So like creating a legacy
Exactly.
that goes beyond just your own contributions.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you actually become that kind of catalyst for change?
It's about establishing clear processes, documenting best practices, and fostering a culture of continuous learning.
So it's like creating that foundation for success, even when you're not there to personally guide things.
Exactly.
Okay. And that brings us, I guess, to the final section of the book, which is shaping your career path.
Yeah, the future.
So let's talk about the future. What kind of wisdom do they offer on navigating your career?
They really encourage people to be proactive
Okay.
and deliberate about their career choices.
Okay.
Make sure that their career aligns with what truly matters to them.
That's good advice for anybody, not just engineers.
It is. It's about being intentional,
Okay.
making conscious decisions.
And then they explore different career paths that are available to staff engineers, right?
do.
Like staying as an individual contributor or moving into management or maybe even doing something like entrepreneurship.
Yeah, they really dig into the challenges and rewards of each of those paths.
So there's not like one right way to do it.
There isn't.
It really depends on your goals and what you find most fulfilling.
Yeah, they emphasize that there are many ways to have a successful and fulfilling career as a staff engineer.
Okay.
It really comes down to defining what success means to you.
Okay, wow, we covered a lot of ground with this book.
We did.
This has definitely given me a whole new appreciation for the staff engineer role.
Yeah, it's a fascinating role.
What are your thoughts?
I think the book does a really good job of capturing the complexity and possibilities of this career path.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the excerpts, is there anything else from this book that really resonated with you or anything else you want to kind of highlight?
I think I'm always struck by the balance that a staff engineer has to strike.
Okay.
They have to be a master of their technical craft.
Right.
They also need to have that big picture thinking, that
Mhm.
ability to influence change, and the drive to be a force for good within their organization.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway for the listeners that, it's about being a leader, even if you don't have the official title.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've kind of gone through the staff engineer's path in pretty good detail here,
Yeah,
highlighted all the key aspects of this unique role.
right.
And we've got some excerpts from the book itself that we pulled out as well.
Yeah, we do.
Should we dive into those now?
Let's do it. I'm excited to see what those excerpts add to the conversation.
Okay, so these excerpts seem to really focus on specific challenges and opportunities within a company. It's almost like a deeper dive into that topographical map analogy that we were talking about before.
It is, it's like we're going to explore the different landforms of the staff engineer role.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
All right, well, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so the first excerpt comes from the foreword.
Okay.
And they mention in the foreword that the staff engineer role is really still an emerging one.
Right.
And it's kind of designed to give ambitious engineers a way to grow their careers without necessarily having to go into management.
Yeah, which I think we were just talking about with the dual track career ladder, recognizing that technical leadership is just as valuable as people management.
Exactly. Okay. And then they go on to say that the book is not meant to be a prescriptive guide,
Okay.
but instead it's meant to provide guidance and frameworks for navigating all the ambiguity inherent in the role.
Yeah, I appreciate that because there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, so true. Okay, the next excerpt we have talks about the importance of staff engineers being able to see the big picture. And they say, while managers handle the day-to-day operations,
Right.
staff engineers need to be able to step back and kind of make those strategic decisions that really impact the entire organization.
Right.
And they even talk about, sometimes having to create a brand new treasure map
Oh, yeah.
when the existing one is unclear or outdated.
That's a cool way to put it.
Yeah, I love that. It really highlights just how much impact a staff engineer can have on the direction of the company.
Absolutely.
And then they also talk about, learning from other engineers' experiences,
Right.
through mentorship, code reviews, design reviews, and things like that.
Okay, that culture of knowledge sharing.
Exactly. And then they even say, that staff engineers should often take on those grungy tasks,
Yeah, the ones nobody else wants to do.
things like writing documentation or building those internal tools.
Yeah, the essential but not glamorous work.
Exactly. But they're absolutely essential for the team's success. And then they talk about how a staff engineer might report within an organization.
Right.
And they talk about, the pros and cons of reporting high
Okay.
to like a director or a VP versus reporting low
Okay.
to like a line manager.
So higher up in the chain versus lower.
Yeah, exactly. And they point out that each approach kind of has its own trade-offs.
Right.
Reporting high gives you a broader perspective, but you might be less involved with a specific team.
Mm-hmm.
Reporting low gets you more hands-on experience, but it could potentially limit your influence.
Okay.
They even suggest having skip-level meetings with your manager,
right.
if you're reporting low, just to kind of stay connected to those broader organizational goals.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And then they also caution against having a scope that's either too broad or too narrow.
Right.
Staff engineers really need to find that sweet spot
Find that balance.
where they can kind of influence the whole organization while still having that deep understanding of their specific area of expertise.
Yeah, and they even use this analogy of a fjord
Okay.
to describe how teams can become separated and kind of lose sight of the big picture.
What a visual. That's amazing. I love these visuals.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay. What's up next in our stack of excerpts?
All right, so this one talks about different archetypes of staff engineers,
Okay.
architects, solvers, and right hands.
Okay, they sound like characters from like a fantasy novel or something.
And they do.
Okay, tell me more.
But they really represent different ways that staff engineers can approach their work.
Okay.
So architects are responsible for the technical direction and quality across a really critical area.
Yep.
Solvers are really laser focused on tackling one difficult problem at a time.
Okay.
And right hands provide leadership bandwidth and support to an organization.
Okay, so it's not about fitting into one specific box,
Right.
but about understanding your strengths and figuring out how you can best contribute to the team.
Exactly.
Okay. And then this excerpt goes on to talk about, really carefully choosing what you focus on.
Right, because a staff engineer's time is finite.
Very finite. Yeah.
They emphasize that important doesn't always mean glamorous or high profile.
Right.
Sometimes the most important work is the behind-the-scenes stuff that keeps everything running smoothly.
All that glue work.
All that glue work.
Yeah.
And they even suggest writing down your understanding of your job and sharing it with your manager.
Okay, so get that alignment.
Get aligned, make sure you're on the same page,
Yeah.
and avoid any surprises down the road.
Yeah, that's smart. And they even give an example of what that role description might look like,
They do.
which is super helpful, I think, to see that concrete example.
Yeah.
Okay. And then again, they remind us about that inherent ambiguity in the staff engineer role.
Right. It comes with the territory.
So being comfortable with the unknown and figuring things out as you go is really part of the job.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah.
They really emphasize the need to be intentional about your choices.
Okay.
Stay aligned with your management chain and set clear expectations.
Okay, so that sounds like a recipe for success.
I think so.
Okay, what's next in our journey through these excerpts?
All right, so this one revisits that map analogy,
Okay.
urging us to really understand our organization's terrain.
I'm ready to explore this map further.
Me too.
So what kind of terrain are we talking about here?
It's about understanding those less visible parts of your company.
Okay.
Things like communication channels, decision-making processes,
Yeah.
and how different teams actually relate to each other.
So it's like having a map that not only shows you the physical layout, but also the cultural and political landscape.
Exactly. And they stress the importance of building relationships with people outside of just the engineering department.
So connecting with product folks and customer support.
Yeah, all the different parts of the company.
Even the administrative staff.
Yeah.
It really gives you a much broader perspective on the company's overall goals and challenges.
Yeah. And you understand how your work impacts others and how their work impacts you.
Right, it's all those interconnected webs.
It is.
Okay. And they also talk about, the different ways that information flows within an organization.
Yeah.
And they emphasize understanding those both formal and informal channels.
Right. So it's not just about, showing up to meetings and reading emails.
Right.
It's about knowing who to talk to and how to get things done.
It's like the unwritten rules of the game.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there's also this really important reminder to maintain empathy for others.
Oh, that's huge.
Especially during stressful incidents.
Yeah.
Remember that there are real people behind those technical problems.
Oh, that's a good point.
And finally, they warn about the dangers of becoming siloed within your team.
Right. Stay connected.
Stay connected to what's happening in the broader organization.
Right. Otherwise, you risk losing sight of the bigger picture and making decisions that aren't aligned with the company's goals.
Exactly.
And they even suggest taking what they call an outsider's view of your work.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, seeking feedback from people outside of your usual circle.
Maybe new hires folks outside of your team.
Yeah.
To gain a fresh perspective.
Challenge your assumptions.
Challenge your assumptions.
Yeah.
Identify blind spots.
That's always valuable.
It is.
Okay. And then the excerpt wraps up by reminding us how crucial it is to understand your company's success metrics.
Right.
So it's not just about shipping code. It's about understanding how your work contributes to the company's success overall.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So this is just a reminder that we're not done with this episode. We're just taking a break right here to make sure these are bite-sized chunks. So stay tuned, and we'll jump right back into the rest of this deep dive in a moment.
Yeah, can't wait.
See you soon.
All right. It's about playing the game strategically. The excerpt also offers several detailed examples of how to evaluate potential projects, walking through the thought process of weighing the pros and cons, and really helps make sure you're making decisions that are good for you and good for your career.
Yeah. I bet those examples are super helpful.
Yeah.
Seeing those concepts applied to real-life situations always makes it click a little bit better, for me at least.
Definitely.
Okay, what's the next juicy excerpt about?
This one dives into leading those big projects.
Okay.
It talks about the challenges and the rewards of stepping up into that leadership role.
So what makes leading those big projects so tricky?
Well, you're dealing with ambiguity, complex relationships, tough decisions.
Sounds intense.
It can be.
But there's rewards too, right?
There are big rewards.
Okay, like what?
Making a significant impact, seeing your vision come to life, developing your leadership skills.
Okay, so it sounds worth it.
It is.
But it also sounds like it takes a certain type of person.
It does. You really need to be comfortable with those things.
Okay, so let's dive into that. So the excerpt talks about the importance of setting your project up for success from the get-go.
Okay.
How do you do that?
Define roles and responsibilities, clearly set crystal clear goals, establish smooth communication channels right from the start.
So it's like laying the groundwork.
Exactly.
Okay, and then they also talk about building context.
Yes. Understand the project's history. Get to know the stakeholders, really wrap your head around the technical landscape.
So do your homework.
Do your homework before you dive in.
Don't just jump into the deep end without knowing how to swim.
Exactly.
Okay, and then it also talks about understanding your own role in the project.
Right. Have that conversation with your manager about what you're responsible for and what's expected of you.
That's smart. That avoids confusion down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget about your customers.
Right. Who are you building this for?
Exactly. Put yourself in their shoes.
Okay, and then there's also defining those success metrics early on.
Yeah.
What are those criteria for measuring the success of the project?
You need to know what you're aiming for.
Okay, and then it talks about using a framework like RSCI to define those roles and responsibilities.
Yes, RSCI is a great way to do that.
We talked about that earlier.
Responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. So everybody knows who's doing what.
That clarity is so important.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then what about communication?
Keep your manager informed about your progress. Be open to their feedback.
Yeah.
It's about building trust.
Yeah. Working in sync.
Working in sync.
Okay.
The excerpt also talks about communicating your project plans.
Okay.
Maybe through like a written project plan or charter.
So everybody can see the roadmap, the timeline.
Exactly.
The resources.
Brings everybody on board.
Okay, and then setting those clear expectations from the start as well.
Right.
Be upfront about your availability, your working style, how you prefer to communicate.
Those boundaries are important. They prevent misunderstandings and frustrations.
And write things down.
Write things down.
Document everything.
Document your decisions, your plans, your progress.
I feel like anybody who's ever worked on like a team project knows how important that documentation is.
Absolutely. It's the glue that holds everything together. So true. Okay, so you've laid the groundwork. Now it's time to actually drive that project forward.
All right, so now we're getting into the execution phase.
Yeah, how do we do that?
This is where you really need to be comfortable with ambiguity.
Okay.
Break down complex problems, and of course, build consensus along the way.
Essential project leader skills.
Absolutely. They also talk about exploring the solution space.
So like looking at different options and choosing the approach that best fits the problem.
Exactly. And also being mindful of how you frame the work.
What does that mean?
Communicate the project's goals clearly and concisely.
Yeah.
You need to tell a compelling story that gets people excited about the work.
Yeah, paint that vision.
Exactly. And break down the problem into smaller, more manageable tasks. It's less daunting that way.
Right.
It feels more achievable. And build mental models.
What a mental model.
It's about creating a shared understanding of how the system works, developing a common language, a shared vision.
So everybody's on the same page.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of pictures and graphs. Yeah.
Visuals, visuals, visuals.
Our brains love visuals.
Right. It's just easier to process that way.
The excerpt also talks about using RFC's request for comments.
Okay.
It's a more formal way of proposing and reviewing changes.
So it's about getting feedback.
Getting feedback, refining your ideas.
Yeah.
And of course, clear communication, avoid ambiguity.
Yeah, be really specific with your writing.
Exactly. Be upfront about the things you don't know.
Okay.
Acknowledge those unknowns.
Don't be afraid to say, I don't know.
I don't know, but let's figure it out together.
Exactly. Be decisive.
Be decisive. Make those decisions.
Keep things moving.
Yeah, avoid getting stuck in those endless debates.
Choose your battles wisely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time and energy on things that don't really matter.
Right. Focus on the high impact stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, write well.
Okay.
Give some specific tips for improving your writing.
Like what? I'm always up for that.
Active voice, avoid jargon. Keep things concise.
It's stuff.
All that good stuff. And collaborate.
Working with others is key to solving these problems.
Yeah, two heads are better than one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more perspectives, the better. And communicate your status regularly.
Keep those stakeholders in the loop.
Exactly. It's about building trust and managing expectations. And when things go well, celebrate those successes.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the accomplishments of your team.
Boost morale.
Boost morale.
Grow.
Create a positive work environment.
Okay, so that's when things go well.
Right.
But inevitably, there's going to be obstacles.
Oh, yeah. Every project has them.
So what about dealing with, like, those ever-changing requirements, those unexpected roadblocks that pop up, those interpersonal conflicts?
That's all part of the fun.
The joys of project management.
Right. But communication seeking help when you need it and being adaptable are key to overcoming these challenges.
So be flexible and know when to ask for help.
Exactly.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this leads us to, I guess, the next excerpt, which is talking about, identifying when a project is stalling out.
Right. Those moments when things just grind to a halt.
Ugh. We've all been there.
We have.
So how do we deal with those situations?
The book starts by reminding us about that distinction between being blocked and being lost.
Right.
So remember, being blocked is when there's an external obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
Being lost is when the project lacks direction or clarity.
Got it.
And they give some different ways to address being blocked, like understanding the other team's priorities,
Okay.
making their work easier,
Mm-hmm.
and escalating if necessary.
And again, communication, I feel like, is key here too.
Absolutely.
Making sure people understand your needs and how this blockage is impacting the project.
Right.
Okay, and then what about those times when you're lost?
Being lost often requires revisiting those project goals,
Okay.
clarifying the requirements, or exploring different approaches.
Sometimes you just need to take a step back.
Exactly.
What is this?
It's better to acknowledge that you're lost than to keep pushing forward in the wrong direction.
Yeah, admitting that you need to course correct is always tough, but it's so much better for the project in the long run.
It is.
Okay, and then there are those situations where a project just isn't moving forward and maybe it shouldn't.
Right.
So, like, maybe the goal's been achieved.
Or the project's no longer viable.
Sometimes it's time to pull the plug.
Exactly. And they also warn against declaring victory too soon.
Right. Done doesn't always mean done.
Just because the code is complete doesn't mean the project is actually ready to ship.
Right. There's testing, documentation, deployment.
There's a lot more to it.
Right. So many moving parts.
They provide some helpful examples of how to define done clearly
Okay.
to avoid that confusion.
Yeah. You got to set that finish line so everybody knows what they're working towards.
Exactly.
Okay. And then they talk about making your work discoverable.
Yeah, it's not enough to build something amazing if nobody can find it.
Exactly. So what are some tips on doing that?
Document your work, effectively make it easy to access.
Okay.
So people can actually find it and use it.
So it's like you're creating a user manual for your own project,
That's a good way to put it.
making sure other people can easily understand and utilize your creation.
Exactly. And they also caution against releasing solutions that are built on a shaky foundation.
Right. So don't just rush something out the door.
Exactly.
Make sure it's built to last.
Build it to last.
Yeah.
Address that technical debt early on.
Yeah. Fix those cracks in the foundation before the whole structure crumbles.
Exactly. Which brings us to being a role model engineer.
One of my favorite topics.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. So it's about setting that positive example.
Yes.
So what does that actually look like in practice?
Showcasing your competence, your commitment to continuous learning, and your willingness to admit when you've made a mistake.
Okay, so those are all qualities I think any engineer should strive for,
They are.
but especially when you're in a leadership position.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the ways that we can embody these qualities?
Be thorough in your work.
Okay.
Always be seeking out new knowledge and be transparent about your missteps.
So it's not just about the technical skills, it's about the attitude and the approach to work.
Exactly your mindset.
Okay, and the book also talks about self-awareness.
Yes.
Knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses,
Right.
being honest about what you can and can't do.
It's crucial for making those smart decisions.
Yeah.
And not overcommitting yourself.
Which is something so many of us struggle with.
It's so easy to do,
It is.
especially when you're excited about the work.
Okay. And they also talk about admitting when you make a mistake,
Yeah,
which I know can be hard,
it can be.
but it's so important for building trust.
It is.
And ultimately, learning from those experiences.
Yeah.
One thing they suggest that I really liked is they said, reframe those mistakes as learning opportunities rather than failures.
Yeah, it's a good mindset shift.
Yeah, it really helps you stay positive even when things don't go perfectly,
Exactly.
which as we know, they never do.
They never do.
Okay, and then they also talk about this idea of embracing glee work.
Yes. The glue work.
Those tasks that often get overlooked,
Mhm.
like writing documentation,
Right.
building those internal tools,
Exactly.
those things that are essential but not always the most glamorous.
Right.
And the book argues that staff engineers should be willing to take ownership of those things,
They should.
even if they're not the most exciting.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's about recognizing that every task contributes to the team's success.
Yeah, it's leading by example.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else stood out to you from this section?
They also talk about taking charge.
Okay.
Not just doing your own work, but stepping up and taking ownership of situations that need attention.
So being proactive,
Be proactive.
taking initiative,
Yeah,
even when it falls outside of your defined role.
exactly.
Do they give any examples of what that might look like?
Yeah, things like coordinating during emergencies,
Okay.
clarifying ambiguous situations,
hmm
addressing interpersonal conflicts.
So it's like part detective, part diplomat, part firefighter.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, you're wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. And then they also talk about being a good influence.
Yes.
And so I guess it's not just about setting a good example. It's about actually, you know, actively helping other people develop their skills and grow their careers.
Yeah, be a mentor, be a coach, be a champion for your teammates.
And they give some specific examples on how to do that, right?
They do. They talk about providing feedback, sharing your knowledge,
hmm
creating opportunities for others to shine.
Okay, so it sounds like staff engineers can really have a huge impact, not just on projects, but on people's careers as well.
Absolutely.
And they even take a step further, and they talk about scaling your good influence.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
So it means going beyond impacting individuals
Okay.
and creating systems and structures that support positive change at a larger scale.
Okay.
They outline 3 levels of influence:
Okay.
individual, group, and catalyst.
Okay. Break that down for me.
Individual influence is what we've been talking about, impacting the people you work with directly.
Right.
Group influence extends that to your whole team or a specific community within your company.
Okay.
And then catalyst influence is about establishing things that have a lasting impact even after you're no longer directly involved.
So like creating a legacy.
Exactly.
Okay, that's amazing. So how do
Yeah.
you actually become that kind of catalyst for change?
It's about establishing clear processes, documenting best practices, and fostering a culture of continuous learning.
Okay, so it's like you're creating that foundation for success,
Yeah,
even when you're not there to personally guide things.
exactly.
Okay, and that brings us to the final section of the book, which is shaping your career path.
Yeah, the future.
So let's talk about the future. What kind of wisdom do they offer on that?
They encourage people to be proactive
Yep.
and deliberate about their career choices,
Oh.
making sure that their career aligns with what truly matters to them.
Good advice for anybody.
It is. It's about being intentional,
Hmm.
making conscious decisions.
And then they explore different career paths for staff engineers, right?
They do.
Like staying an individual contributor,
Hmm.
moving into management, or maybe even doing something entrepreneurial.
Yeah, they talk about all of those different paths.
Okay, so there's not just one right way to do it.
There's not.
It really depends on your goals and what you find most fulfilling.
Exactly.
Okay, what were your big takeaways from this section?
I really liked how they talked about optimizing for what truly matters to you.
Okay.
Because there's no one-size-fits-all approach to career success.
It's about figuring out what you value most and then making choices that support those values.
Exactly. And they also talked about continuous skill development,
Yep.
identifying the skills that you need to achieve your goals,
Mhm.
and then seeking out opportunities to build those skills.
It might be taking on a challenging new project or attending a workshop or even just reading a book.
Yeah,
Anything to expand your knowledge.
exactly. It's about embracing lifelong learning.
Never stop growing. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. What else stood out to you from this section?
They also talked about building visibility.
Okay, so it's not enough to just do great work.
No,
People actually need to know about it too.
exactly.
So what were some of their suggestions for building visibility?
Speaking at conferences, writing blog posts, contributing to open source projects.
So it's about becoming a thought leader in your field.
Exactly. Getting your name out there,
Okay.
showing people what you're capable of.
Okay. What other gems did you find in this section?
They really emphasize building relationships,
Okay.
cultivating a network of people who can support your career growth.
Yeah. Attending industry events, joining online communities, reaching out to people that you admire,
Exactly.
building those connections.
It's so valuable.
It's all about fostering those mutually beneficial relationships, supporting each other, learning from each other,
Absolutely.
creating that network of people who can really help you navigate your career journey.
Exactly.
So, okay. And of course, they encourage people to be, choose roles and projects deliberately,
Yeah.
be strategic about the work you take on.
Don't just say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Be picky.
It's your career.
It is. And they dig into the reasons why you might want to consider changing jobs.
Okay. So like, what are some of the reasons that they highlight?
Seeking new experiences, wanting more growth opportunities, needing a change of pace.
Those are all valid reasons to make a move.
They are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else did you find insightful?
I liked how they talked about the pros and cons of different career paths.
Okay.
Staying as an individual contributor
Right.
versus moving into management or even taking that entrepreneurial leap.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to know that there's all these different options.
There are.
Yeah.
They also shared some inspiring stories
Oh, okay.
of people who found success and fulfillment in a variety of roles.
I bet those real-life examples are really valuable for people.
Oh, they're so helpful. They
Yeah.
really bring those concepts to life.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway from this whole section on shaping your career path?
Be true to yourself.
Yes.
Choose a path that aligns with your values and makes you feel truly fulfilled.
Yeah, I think that's the key to long-term happiness and success.
I think so too. And don't be afraid to take risks.
Yeah, step outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Chase those dreams.
That's how you achieve those extraordinary things.
These excerpts have been so good. They've given us so much valuable insight into the world of the staff engineer.
They really have.
All those different challenges and opportunities.
It's clear that this role is about so much more than just technical skills.
Yeah, it's about leadership and influence.
And making a meaningful impact.
And it's a role that's constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
As technology changes, the role of the staff engineer will also adapt and grow.
It will.
But I think a lot of the core principles that we've been talking about today will always be relevant.
They will.
Things like continuous learning, embracing ambiguity, being a role model for others.
Those are timeless qualities.
Those are the things that will help any staff engineer succeed no matter what.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that we've kind of gone through the excerpts,
Right.
we actually have a few other little snippets
We do.
that you sent me from various other materials.
Yeah, just some random little nuggets.
Should we take a quick look at those?
Let's do it. They might contain some hidden gems we haven't uncovered yet.
Okay. Let's see what we got. Okay, so the first snippet talks about understanding your organization's shadow org chart.
The shadow org chart.
So what's a shadow org chart?
It's that informal network of relationships and influence that exists alongside the formal organizational structure.
Okay, so it's like understanding where the real power lies.
Yeah.
And how decisions actually get made, even if it's not reflected in the official hierarchy.
Exactly. And it really emphasizes the importance of building relationships with those key players in the shadow org chart.
So knowing who to talk to and how to navigate those unofficial channels.
Exactly. It's all about influence.
Yeah.
And they also remind us to communicate clearly and concisely, especially when dealing with busy executives.
Yeah, time is precious.
It is.
Okay, what's next?
This one focuses on building a culture of respect in the workplace.
Okay, that's huge.
It is. They encourage speaking up if you see someone being treated unfairly.
Okay.
And creating an environment where everyone feels safe and valued.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else?
This one talks about accurately estimating time.
The struggle is real.
Yeah, it's a common challenge for engineers.
It really is.
We tend to underestimate how long things will actually take.
Yeah, for sure. So any tips for getting better at that?
Break down tasks into smaller chunks. Consider potential roadblocks and delays.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to add a little buffer to your estimates.
Yeah, better to overestimate and deliver early than to underestimate and scramble to catch up.
Exactly.
Okay. And then consistency is key.
Yes, be predictable and reliable. Build that trust and credibility.
So true. Okay. What's next?
This snippet talks about setting clear expectations from the start.
So be upfront about your availability, your working style,
Yeah.
how you like to communicate.
Those boundaries are important.
Yeah, set those boundaries.
They prevent misunderstandings.
Exactly.
Oh.
Okay. What else do we got here?
This one highlights the power of pictures and graphs.
Yeah.
Use visuals to communicate information.
Visuals are so impactful.
Our brains are wired to process information more easily when it's presented visually.
Okay, this one's interesting. It suggests having a conversation with your future self.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
It encourages you to imagine what you'll wish you had done a year from now.
Okay.
5 years from now.
Okay, so think about the long-term consequences of your choices.
Yeah, it can be a really helpful exercise.
Okay, this one talks about, understanding your organization's culture.
Yes.
So those unwritten rules.
Unwritten rule.
The norms that really govern behavior.
Yeah. You gotta know how to play the game.
It's like learning the secret handshake.
Exactly.
Okay. And then they talk about having a shared understanding of what done means.
Ah, yes. We've talked about this before.
We have.
Define those criteria for completion clearly and early on.
Right.
To avoid any confusion.
Setting that finish line.
Exactly.
Okay. And then they talk about becoming your own user.
Ah, yes. Dog fooding.
Dog fooding your own product.
They see.
Use the things that you're building.
Use it yourself.
Yeah.
You'll understand the user journey.
And you'll also identify areas for improvement.
Exactly.
Okay. This one says, escape the echo chamber.
Yeah, seek out diverse perspectives.
Challenge your own assumptions.
It's so important to avoid groupthink.
Get those fresh perspectives.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then manage your energy
Yes.
as a constrained resource.
Your energy's finite.
You can't do everything.
You can't buy it.
Pace yourself.
Yeah, avoid burnout.
Absolutely.
What else? Don't be afraid to escalate issues
Okay.
when necessary.
So if you can't resolve it yourself,
Take it up the chain.
raise those concerns to the appropriate people.
Exactly.
Okay.
And keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Strive for simplicity.
Yeah, that makes your work easier to understand.
Exactly.
To maintain to scale.
Absolutely.
What else?
This one ties back to setting a clear vision,
Okay.
making sure that everybody has a shared understanding of where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Yeah, align those efforts.
Exactly.
Make that progress.
And establish clear policies.
Okay, so guidelines for behavior decision-making.
Exactly.
Consistency and fairness.
Okay. This one's interesting. It's about dealing with procrastinators.
Ah, yes. We all know those folks.
We do. Any tips for motivating those folks?
Set clear deadlines.
Yeah, okay.
Offer support.
Mm-hmm.
And hold them accountable.
Sometimes you need that little nudge.
You do.
Okay. Well,
Understand your customers' needs.
build products and services that address those needs.
Create value.
Create value.
Make a difference?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Celebrate your colleagues' wins.
Yeah.
Praise those superstars. Make
Mhm.
sure they feel appreciated.
That's how you create that positive work environment.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else?
Use pair programming effectively.
Oh, yeah, pair programming.
It's a powerful technique.
Yeah?
Set clear goals. Communicate openly.
Take breaks.
Take breaks.
Yeah, take care of yourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else?
Understand the sunk cost fallacy.
The sunk cost
Yeah,
fallacy.
I mean-
Oh, yes. The tendency to just stick with something just because we've already invested so much in it,
Right.
even if it's no longer viable.
Don't be afraid to abandon a project
Yeah.
if it's not working.
Cut your losses and move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What else? Effectively using surveys to gather feedback.
Okay, ask good questions.
Ask good questions.
Make sure the survey is accessible.
Easy to use
Yeah.
and provides valuable insights.
Okay, and then we've got track your progress using those success metrics
Yes.
that we talked about earlier.
Define your criteria. Track your progress.
Are those efforts actually moving the needle?
Exactly.
Okay.
Create a culture of quality.
Strive for excellence.
That's how you build a reputation for doing great work.
Okay.
Use guardrails
Guardrails,
to prevent mistakes.
code reviews,
Balance.
automated tests, checklists.
All those things.
Yeah, all those safety nets.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Set a good example.
Set a good example.
Model the behavior you want to see in others.
Yeah.
Create that positive and productive environment.
What else?
Use style guides
Style guides
to ensure consistency.
for coding, writing design,
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Keep things consistent.
And then finally, use version control systems effectively.
Ah, yes, the
Yep.
bread and butter of software development.
Right. Manage code changes, collaborate with others.
Use branching strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Write clear commit messages.
Yes.
Resolve conflicts like a pro.
Okay, wow. We just went through a whirlwind of all those little snippets.
we did.
But I feel like they touched on so many important aspects of the staff engineer role.
They did.
And they gave such practical advice that I think anybody can apply to their career.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to me how much those snippets really highlighted the human side of engineering.
It's one of the biggest takeaways from this whole deep dive. It's
Yeah.
not just about the code, it's about the people,
Mm.
understanding how to effectively work within an organization.
Yeah, so what does all this mean for you as you're kind of considering this staff engineer role?
It means being prepared to embrace ambiguity,
Mm-hmm.
think strategically,
Okay.
and be a role model for others.
So it's about being a leader,
Yeah,
even without the title,
exactly.
leading through your influence and your expertise.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else should people keep in mind as they're kind of exploring this career path?
Be a lifelong learner.
Okay.
Always seek to expand your skills and knowledge.
Fantastic qualities for any engineer.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I feel like this has given us a really good overview of the staff engineer role.
I think so.
Highlighted all those key skills and qualities that can really set you up for success.
Yeah.
I feel much more informed about this career path now.
Yeah, me too.
It's been a real eye-opener.
It's been a great journey.
So how are you feeling about the staff engineer role now?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I have a much better understanding
Yeah.
of what it takes to be successful in this role.
And I have a feeling our listeners probably feeling the same way.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
But remember that, this deep dive was just a starting point.
Right.
We encourage you to keep learning
Keep exploring.
and exploring.
There's always more. There's always more to discover.
Yeah, so true. So we've reached the end of our deep dive
We have.
into the world of the staff engineer.
It's been a long journey.
It has been a long one. But I'm leaving here feeling really energized
Me too.
and inspired.
It's been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. And I have a feeling you're feeling pretty well equipped to kind of delve deeper into this role now.
I am. I feel like I've got a good foundation.
Yeah, and I hope our listeners are feeling the same way.
I hope so too.
But remember, this was just a starting point.
It is.
We always encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring.
There's a whole world out there.
There is.
Just waiting to be discovered.
So true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that officially wraps up our deep dives into the staff engineer role.
It does.
It's been incredibly insightful. I hope you all got a lot out of it.
I did. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. It was a pleasure having you here.
The pleasure was all mine.
And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring and learning.
Absolutely.
There's a whole universe of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered.
Keep digging.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the staff engineer. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.
Happy exploring.